They say every neighborhood has secrets. But ours? Ours was built on them. I moved into Willow Creek for the quiet, for the promise of peace, for the illusion of control. What I didn't expect was him. HOA President Richard Langston. A man with a clipboard, a smile too polished, and eyes that saw everything. He fined me the first week I moved in for a mailbox that leaned 2 degrees too far left. I laughed at the absurdity. He didn't. That fine was the beginning. Of tension. Of glances. Of something neither of us could name. I painted my door red. He fined me again. Said it violated the neutral palette clause. I asked him what emotion red violated. He didn't answer. Just stared. Too long. Too hard. Neighbors whispered about him. Said he was strict. Said he was lonely. Said his wife left him for a man who didn't measure grass height with a ruler. I didn't care. Until I did. It started with a knock. Late. Unannounced. I opened the door and there he was, Richard Langston, clipboard absent, eyes softer than I'd ever seen. I need to talk, he said. I let him in. He didn't talk about fines, or bylaws, or mailbox angles. He talked about silence, about how the house echoed since his daughter left for college, about how the neighborhood felt colder, even in July. I listened. I shouldn't have. The next morning, a warning slipped under my door. Trash bins must be concealed from street view. His handwriting. His rules. His way of saying, I'm still watching. But I didn't hide the bins. I wanted him to come back. He did. This time, he brought wine. Said it was a peace offering. Said he was off duty. Said he liked red doors. We drank. We talked. We crossed lines. The affair didn't start with passion. It started with power. With proximity. With the thrill of defiance. He fined me again. For a garden gnome. I kissed him that night. He said it was wrong. I said wrong was subjective. We met in secret. In shadows. In the spaces between HOA meetings and neighborhood patrols. He'd fine me for noise violations, then whisper apologies into my neck. I started collecting the fines. Framing them. Each one a love letter in disguise. Neighbors noticed. They always do. Mrs. Caldwell saw him leave my house at midnight. She told the board. They called an emergency meeting. He denied everything. I stayed silent. Silence is powerful. It's how secrets survive. But secrets rot. They fester. They demand air. One night, he cried. Said he couldn't keep living 2 lives. Said the board was watching. Said his daughter would hate him. I told him to choose. He chose the HOA. I got a final notice the next day. Failure to comply with community standards. Recommendation, eviction. I laughed. Loud. Long, ugly. He came to deliver it himself. Didn't speak. Just handed me the envelope and walked away. I watched him go. Clipboard in hand. Back straight. Heart broken. I didn't fight the eviction. I moved out. Left the red door. The gnome. The framed fines. But I kept the wine glass. The one he drank from. The one with his fingerprints still etched in dust. Years passed. Willow Creek changed. New president. New bylaws. Same secrets. I drove by once. Saw him mowing his lawn. Alone. Still measuring grass height. He looked up. Saw me. Didn't wave. I didn't stop. Some affairs end in fire. Ours ended in fines. But every time I see a red door, I remember. Not the man. The silence. The thrill. The cost. The silence after eviction was louder than any fine. I moved into a smaller place. No HOA. No bylaws. No Richard. But absence doesn't erase memory. It amplifies it. I kept seeing him in strangers. In the way a man adjusted his tie too tightly. In the way someone measured their fence with a tape. In the way control disguised itself as care. I tried to forget. But forgetting is a luxury the heart doesn't afford. One night, I got a call. Unknown number. I answered. I shouldn't be calling, he said. I didn't speak. I missed the red door, he whispered. I hung up. But I didn't block him. Weeks passed. Then months. Then a letter arrived. No return address. Just my name. Inside, a photo. Us. On my porch. His hand on mine. My eyes closed. Peaceful. Dangerous. I burned it. But I memorized it first. Richard was unraveling. Slowly. Quietly. Like wallpaper peeling behind furniture. Neighbors started talking. Said he fined Mrs. Caldwell for planting roses. Said he yelled at a teenager for parking too close to the curb. Said he cried during a board meeting. Power doesn't fade. It fractures. I drove by Willow Creek again. Just once. Just to see. His lawn was perfect. His posture, less so. He saw me. Didn't wave. But his eyes begged. I parked. Got out. Walked to him. You shouldn't be here, he said. I'm not, I replied. We stood in silence. The kind that used to mean something. I kept the gnome, he said. I smiled. I kept the wine glass. He looked away. They want me to step down. Will you? I don't know who I am without the rules. I wanted to tell him that he was more than fines, more than bylaws, more than the man who measured grass. But I didn't. Instead, I said, then rewrite them. He laughed. Bitter. Broken. You think it's that simple? No, I said. But it's possible. He didn't answer. I left. That night, another letter. This time, typed. Formal. Cold. Notice of HOA President resignation. Effective immediately. No signature. Just silence. I didn't know what to feel. Relief? Regret? Both? Neither? I poured wine. From the same bottle he brought years ago. It had aged. Like us. Like secrets. I drank alone. Then, a knock. I opened the door. Richard. No clipboard. No tie. Just him. I don't know where else to go, he said. I let him in. We didn't speak. We didn't touch. We just existed. In the same room. Breathing the same air. Haunted by the same choices. He slept on the couch. I watched him. His face softer. His guard down. His heart exposed. Morning came. He was gone. But the wineglass was clean. Placed gently on the counter. Like a goodbye. I didn't chase him. Some stories don't need closure. They need distance. But Willow Creek wasn't done with us. A new president took over. Young. Ambitious. Ruthless. She reopened every file. Every fine. Every whisper. She found the photo. She called a meeting. Richard was summoned. So was I. I didn't want to go. But curiosity is a cruel companion. The room was full. Neighbors. Board members. Eyes hungry for scandal. The photo was projected. Large. Unforgiving. Mr. Langston, the new president said, do you deny this relationship? He stood. Tall. Tired. Honest. I don't deny it, he said. Gasps. Murmurs. Judgment. She was a resident. You fined her repeatedly. Then engaged in a personal relationship. That's a violation. He nodded. I know. Then why? He looked at me. Not the photo. Me. Because she saw me, he said. Not the clipboard. Not the bylaws. Me. Silence. Real silence. The kind that shifts rooms. I stood. Walked to him. Took his hand. I saw him, I said. And I loved what I saw. The room didn't applaud. Didn't cheer. But it didn't condemn either. Sometimes, truth disarms more than denial. We left together. Not as lovers. Not as rebels. Just as two people who dared to feel. The fines faded. The whispers died. The red door was repainted. The gnome stolen. But the wineglass remained. Not the affair. Not the scandal. The seeing. The being seen. After the meeting, the neighborhood changed. Not overnight. Not loudly. But subtly. Like a shift in wind direction. Like a door that creaks differently than it used to. People stopped waving. Not at me. At each other. Willow Creek had been built on order. On rules. On the illusion of perfection. But perfection is brittle. And Richard had cracked it. He stayed in his house. Rarely came out. The lawn stayed trimmed. The mailbox stayed centered. But the man inside was fading. I saw him once. Through the window. Sitting in the dark. No clipboard. No wine. Just silence. I wanted to knock. To ask if he was okay. To remind him that being seen once doesn't mean you disappear when the eyes turn away. But I didn't. Instead, I walked past. Like everyone else. The new president, Marissa, was efficient. Ruthless. She rewrote the bylaws. Doubled the fines. Installed cameras at the entrance. She called it restoring integrity. I called it fear. Fear of chaos. Fear of vulnerability. Fear of what Richard had shown us, that control is a mask, and masks slip. One day, I got a letter. Not a fine. A request. Former resident invited to speak at HOA community night. Topic: Lessons from the Langston era. I laughed. Then I cried. I didn't want to speak. I wanted to forget. But forgetting is a privilege I never earned. So I went. The room was full. Faces I knew. Faces I didn't. All waiting. All watching. I stood at the podium. Took a breath. I'm not here to defend Richard, I said. I'm here to explain him. Murmurs. Shifts. Eyes narrowing. He was flawed. Controlling. Obsessive. But he was also lonely. And loneliness makes people do strange things. I paused. Looked at Marissa. Her jaw clenched. He fined me. Over and over. For things that didn't matter. But behind every fine was a man desperate to be noticed. Someone scoffed. I ignored it. We had an affair. Yes. But it wasn't about rebellion. It was about recognition. About two people who saw each other in a world that only saw rules. Silence. Real silence. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for understanding. I stepped down. No applause. No questions. Just quiet. Richard wasn't there. But the next morning, another letter. Handwritten. Sloppy. Raw. I heard you spoke. Thank you. I didn't deserve it. But thank you. No signature. Just a fingerprint smudge in the corner. I framed it. Not as a trophy. As a reminder. Weeks passed. Then months. Willow Creek grew colder. Not in temperature. In tone. Neighbors stopped hosting barbecues. Kids stopped playing in the cul-de-sac. The newsletter became a list of violations, not celebrations. Marissa ruled with precision. But precision lacks warmth. One day, I got a call. From Mrs. Caldwell. Richard's house, she said. It's different. I drove over. The lawn was overgrown. The mailbox tilted. The porch light flickered. I knocked. No answer. I tried the door. Unlocked. Inside, dust. Silence. A wine glass on the counter. Empty. A clipboard on the floor. Cracked. Photos on the wall. His daughter. His wife. Me. I sat on the couch. The same one he slept on years ago. And I waited. He didn't come. I left a note. You were seen. You mattered. Come back. I never got a reply. But the lawn was trimmed the next day. The mailbox straightened. The porch light fixed. He was still there. Still watching. Still trying. And so was I. I didn't plan to return to Willow Creek. But some places don't let go. They linger. In memory. In muscle. In the way your car turns down a familiar street without asking. I drove past the old house. The red door was gone. Beige now. Approved. Forgettable. The gnome was missing. The porch empty. But the wine glass was still there. In the window. Like a relic. Like a dare. I parked. Got out. Walked slowly. Not toward my old house. Toward his. Richard's lawn was perfect again. But the perfection felt forced. Like a smile held too long. I knocked. He opened the door. Older. Thinner. Eyes tired, but still searching. You came back, he said. I never really left, I replied. He stepped aside. I entered. The house smelled like dust and memory. Photos still hung. His daughter. His wife. Me. I should take that down, he said, nodding toward my photo. Why? I asked. Because it's not real anymore. I walked closer. Looked at the frame. It was real once. That's enough. We sat. No wine. No clipboard. Just silence. I think about you, he said. I know. I think about the fines. The rules. The way I used them to stay in control. You were scared. He nodded. Still am. I leaned back. We all are. He looked at me. Do you regret it? I paused. No. I regret the silence after. He exhaled. Long, heavy. I wanted to call. So many times. Why didn't you? Because I didn't know what I'd say. Sometimes, saying nothing says everything. He smiled. Barely. You always understood me better than I understood myself. I stood. Walked to the window. The wine glass caught the light. A prism of memory. I kept mine too, I said. He joined me. Do you ever drink from it? Only when I want to remember. What do you remember? The way you looked at me. Like I mattered. You did. I still do. He turned away. I'm not the man I was. Good, I said. He was lonely. We sat again. Hours passed. No words. Just presence. Before I left, he handed me a letter. Sealed. Heavy. Don't open it here, he said. I nodded. At home, I opened it. Inside, a list. Every fine he ever gave me. Annotated. Explained. Apologized. Next page, a poem. His handwriting. Shaky. Honest. You were the rule I wanted to break. I cried. Not because of the words. Because of the man who wrote them. Because of the love that never fit inside the lines. Because of the silence that followed. Because of the rules we break to feel alive. I framed the letter. Next to the wine glass. Next to the photo. Next to the memory. Willow Creek still stands. So does Richard. So do I. But we're different now. Not broken. Just rewritten. After Richard resigned, Willow Creek didn't celebrate. There were no banners. No announcements. Just a quiet shift in tone. Like a piano played in a different key. Marissa took over fully. Her rules were sharper. Cleaner. Less personal. She didn't fine with emotion. She fined with efficiency. The neighborhood adjusted. People complied. Not out of respect. Out of fear. But fear doesn't build community. It builds silence. I watched from a distance. Not as a resident. As a witness. Richard stayed. But he shrank. His walks became shorter. His porch light dimmer. His voice quieter. I visited once a week. Never announced. Never expected. Just present. We didn't talk about the affair anymore. Or the fines. Or the photo. We talked about birds. About weather. About books he never finished. He started writing again. Not bylaws. Stories. Fiction. About a man who loved rules but broke one for love. He never said it was about us. But I knew. One day, he handed me a notebook. Leather-bound. Pages filled with ink and longing. I want you to have it, he said. I opened it. The first line, she was the only violation I never regretted. I cried. He didn't. We sat in silence. The kind that feels like music. Marissa called another meeting. This time, about community engagement. She wanted volunteers. Enforcers. Eyes on the street. I attended. Not to volunteer. To observe. She spoke with precision. With power. But without warmth. Someone asked about Richard. About his legacy. She dismissed it. We've moved on. I stood. No, I said. We've paused. The room turned. Richard wasn't perfect. But he cared. Deeply. Messily. Honestly. Marissa frowned. He broke protocol. So do hearts, I replied. Silence. I left. The next day, a letter arrived. From a neighbor. Handwritten. Thank you. I never liked the rules. But I liked the way you spoke about him. I framed it. Richard smiled when I showed him. You're becoming the voice of Willow Creek, he said. I don't want to be. Too late. We started walking together. Slowly. Quietly. Past homes we once judged. Past doors we once fined. People waved. Not at me. At him. Forgiveness is slow. But it starts with a glance. He began hosting book nights. Small. Intimate. No bylaws. Just stories. I attended every one. He read from his notebook. Never named me. But I was in every line. One night, he read a passage. She taught me that rules don't protect us. They isolate us. And isolation is the cruelest fine of all. The room was silent. Someone clapped. Then another. Then everyone. He cried. I held his hand. Willow Creek was changing. Not because of Marissa. Because of memory. Because of love. Because of the echo of unwritten bylaws. And every time I walk past his house, I see the wine glass in the window. Still there. Still full. Still waiting. Richard stopped writing bylaws. But he never stopped writing. His notebook grew thicker. Pages filled with stories, reflections, fragments of a man trying to understand himself. He gave me one every month. A new chapter. A new confession. A new way to say, I'm still here. I read them all. Slowly. Reverently. Like scripture from a forgotten faith. One story stayed with me. It was about a man who fined a woman for planting sunflowers. Said they violated the Uniform Flora Clause. But secretly, he loved them, because they reminded him of his mother. He watched them bloom, then wilt, then disappear. And he never forgave himself. I asked Richard if it was true. He nodded. Her name was Evelyn. She lived on Birch Lane. She died last year. I held his hand. I wish I'd told her, he said. You just did, I replied. We planted sunflowers in his yard the next day. Marissa found him. He framed it. The neighborhood noticed. Not the flowers. The defiance. And slowly, others followed. Daisies. Tulips. Violets. Gardens bloomed like rebellion. Marissa sent warnings. Notices. Threats. No one complied. She resigned 3 months later. No replacement was elected. Willow Creek became self-governed. Informal. Messy. Human. Richard smiled more. He hosted poetry nights. Story circles. Silent walks. People came. Not for rules. For connection. He read a piece once. About a woman with a red door and a wineglass. About the way she changed his life. He didn't name me. He didn't have to. I read one too. About a man with a clipboard and a cracked heart. About the way he taught me that love isn't loud, it's persistent. We didn't speak after. Just looked at each other. And knew. One evening, he handed me a final envelope. This is the last fine I ever wrote, he said. I opened it. Inside, a blank page. I couldn't think of a reason, he said. I kissed his cheek. He cried. I framed it. Next to the others. Next to the wine glass. Next to the photo. Willow Creek still stands. But it breathes differently now. No bylaws. No fines. Just stories. And every time someone plants a sunflower, I remember Evelyn. And every time someone leaves a wineglass in their window, I remember us. And every time someone breaks a rule to feel alive, I remember Richard. The fine that never left the ledger. Because it was never written. Because it was never needed. Because love doesn't need permission. It just needs courage. Willow Creek had no president now. No fines. No bylaws. No meetings. But it had memory. And memory governs more deeply than rules ever could. Richard became a symbol. Not of scandal. Of change. People spoke of him with reverence. With curiosity. With the kind of tone reserved for those who dared to feel in places built to suppress. He didn't seek attention. He trimmed his lawn. He read his books. He wrote his stories. But his porch became a pilgrimage. Neighbors left notes. Flowers. Poems. One child drew a picture of a man with a clipboard and a heart. Richard framed it. I visited often. Not out of duty. Out of rhythm. We didn't always speak. Sometimes we just sat. 2 chairs. 1 silence. Infinite meaning. He gave me another notebook. This one thinner. But heavier. Inside, a single story. About a woman who moved into a neighborhood and painted her door red. About a man who found her. About how the find became a conversation. How the conversation became a confession. How the confession became a connection. How the connection became a crack in the system. How the crack became a flood. How the flood washed away everything but truth. I read it twice. Then again. Then I cried. He watched me. Quiet. Gentle. I wanted that to be the last thing I ever wrote, he said. It's perfect, I replied. He smiled. It's honest. We planted more sunflowers. Neighbors joined. The cul-de-sac bloomed. Someone repainted their door red. Then another. Then another. Marissa returned once. Drove through slowly. Saw the colors. The flowers. The wineglasses in windows. She didn't stop. She didn't wave. She didn't fine. She just left. Richard watched from his porch. I think she understands now, he said. Or envies, I replied. He nodded. Both are valid. One evening, he didn't come to the porch. I waited. I knocked. No answer. I entered. He was in his chair. Eyes closed. Peaceful. Notebook on his lap. Wineglass beside him. I touched his hand. Cold. I sat beside him. I didn't cry. Not yet. I read the notebook. The last page, blank. I wrote one line. You were the rule I broke to become myself. Then I cried. The neighborhood mourned. Not with silence. With stories. With flowers. With red doors. With wineglasses. With poems. With laughter. With memory. His funeral was simple. No speeches. Just readings. From his notebooks. From mine. From ours. I kept the last notebook. I placed it beside the wine glass. Next to the photo. Next to the blank fine. Next to the sunflower seeds. Willow Creek still stands. But it breathes differently now. Because of a man who fined with longing. Because of a woman who defied with love. Because of a door that refused to fade. And every time I see red, I remember. Not the scandal. Not the affair. The awakening. The legacy. The man. The silence. The fine. The love. The red door that never fades. After Richard's funeral, the neighborhood didn't return to normal. Because normal was never real. Instead, it settled into something softer. Something honest. Something human. People stopped pretending. They stopped measuring grass. They stopped whispering about violations. They started waving again. They started planting again. They started remembering. I stayed. Not in my old house. In his. It felt right. Not because it was mine. Because it was his. Because it held stories in the walls. Because it remembered him. I didn't change the furniture. I didn't repaint the walls. I didn't remove the photo. I added to it. Letters. Notes. Drawings. Pieces of a man who once ruled with rules and died with poetry. Neighbors visited. Not to complain. To connect. To ask questions. To share memories. To leave gifts. One woman brought a sunflower. Another brought a wineglass. A child brought a clipboard, painted red. I hung it on the wall. The house became a museum. Not of scandal. Of transformation. Of love. Of legacy. I started writing too. Not stories. Letters. To Richard. Every week. I never mailed them. I placed them in a box. Beside the wineglass. Beside the notebook. Beside the blank fine. One letter read. I still see you in the way the sun hits the porch. In the way the wind moves the curtains. In the way silence feels like presence. Another. I planted more sunflowers. They're taller than last year. I think you'd laugh at how wild they've grown. Another. I miss the way you looked at me when I spoke. Like every word mattered. Like every pause was sacred. The box filled. So did my heart. Willow Creek changed. Not because of bylaws. Because of stories. Because of Richard. Because of us. People started writing too. Letters to lost ones. To old selves. To futures they feared. We created a wall. The memory wall. Covered in paper. Covered in truth. Covered in love. Marissa returned once. She stood in front of the wall. Read every letter. She cried. She left a note. I didn't understand. I do now. We framed it. Richard's daughter visited. She hadn't been back in years. She walked through the house. Touched the wineglass. Read the notebooks. Stood in front of the photo. She turned to me. Thank you, she said. For what? For seeing him. I nodded. He saw me too. She smiled. He always wanted to be seen. He was. She left a sunflower. We planted it together. The house bloomed. Not with flowers. With memory. With meaning. With the echo of a man who fined with longing and loved with silence. And every time I sit on the porch, I feel him. Not as a ghost. As a presence. As a warmth. As a whisper. As a reminder. That love doesn't follow rules. It rewrites them. And the house remembers. Because I remember. Because we all do. I found it while cleaning. The attic was dusty. Forgotten. A place for things too heavy to throw away but too painful to keep close. It was tucked behind a box of old newsletters. Richard's clipboard. The same one he carried through every meeting, every fine, every moment he tried to hold the neighborhood together with rules. I picked it up. It was heavier than I remembered. Not in weight. In memory. The surface was scratched. The edges worn. The clip rusted. But it still held papers. I read them. Old violation notices. Drafts of bylaws. Notes in the margins. One page stopped me. A list. Residents I worry about. My name was first. Beside it, she sees too much. I smiled. Then cried. Because I did. And I still do. I placed the clipboard on the desk. Not to use. To honor. It became a symbol. Not of control. Of care. Of the man who tried to protect a neighborhood by measuring grass and ended up planting sunflowers. Neighbors visited more often now. Not to complain. To connect. To remember. To ask questions. One child asked, "Was Richard scary?" I shook my head. He was scared. The child nodded. Me too. We planted a sunflower together. The porch became a classroom. Not with lessons. With stories. With silence. With presence. I read from Richard's notebooks. People listened. They cried. They laughed. They remembered. One woman said, "I used to hate him. Now I miss him." Another said, "He fined me for my wind chimes. I still hear them when I think of him." Another said, "He made me repaint my door. I repainted it red last week." The neighborhood bloomed. Not with perfection. With truth. With vulnerability. With love. I wrote more letters. To Richard. To myself. To the future. One read. "I used to think rules kept us safe. Now I know stories do." Another. "I see you in every act of quiet rebellion. In every flower planted without permission. In every door painted with memory." Another. "I'm not trying to replace you. I'm trying to remember you correctly." The box overflowed. I built a shelf. The memory shelf. Neighbors added to it. Photos. Notes. Drawings. Finds. One child left a toy clipboard. Another left a red crayon. Another left a sunflower seed. I framed them all. Because memory deserves framing. Because love deserves space. Because Richard deserves to be remembered as more than a man with rules. He was a man with reasons. And every time I walk past the shelf, I feel him. Not as a ghost. As a guide. As a whisper. As a warmth. As a reminder. That the clipboard in the attic wasn't forgotten. It was waiting. To be seen. To be understood. To be loved. Just like him. I never asked to lead. But sometimes, stories choose their narrators. After Richard passed, neighbors began asking me questions. Not about bylaws. About belonging. About grief. About change. I didn't have answers. But I had stories. And stories became the new rules. We met every Sunday. Not in boardrooms. On porches. In gardens. In silence. We shared memories. We planted flowers. We painted doors. We rewrote the neighborhood. Not with documents. With presence. One woman asked, "Are you the new president?" I shook my head. "I'm just someone who remembers." She smiled. "That's enough." I started keeping a new notebook. Not for finds. For feelings. For fragments. For echoes. One page read, "Leadership isn't control. It's care." Another. "Rules don't build homes. Stories do." Another. "Richard taught me that silence is sacred. But so is speaking." I read them aloud. Neighbors listened. Children drew pictures. One showed me a sketch of a house with a red door, a sunflower garden, and a wine glass in every window. I framed it. The memory shelf grew. So did the wall. So did the porch. So did the neighborhood. We stopped measuring grass. We started measuring kindness. We stopped enforcing silence. We started honoring it. We stopped fearing difference. We started celebrating it. One evening, I found a note on my doorstep. Typed, formal, familiar. "I used to fine you. Now I thank you." No signature. But I knew. I placed it beside the blank fine. Next to the wine glass. Next to the photo. Next to the clipboard. Next to the story. Willow Creek still stands. But it breathes differently now. Because of a man who broke his own rules. Because of a woman who refused to be silenced. Because of a neighborhood that chose memory over control. And every time I write in my notebook, I remember. I'm not the president. I'm the witness. I'm the echo. I'm the rule I never wrote, but always followed. It started with a whisper. Not loud. Not cruel. Just curious. "Did you hear what happened to Richard?" The whisper floated through hedges. Across driveways. Into kitchens. It didn't accuse. It wondered. It didn't shout. It lingered. Some neighbors dismissed it. Others leaned in. One woman said, "I always knew something was off." Another said, "I never saw it coming." But no one denied it. Because the truth had already bloomed. Not in scandal. In silence. The wine glass on the porch. The blank fine. The photo. The story. They weren't secrets anymore. They were symbols. And symbols speak louder than gossip. The HOA board tried to hold a meeting. To restore order. Only 3 people showed up. One brought cookies. One brought questions. One brought a resignation letter. The bylaws were still intact, but the belief in them wasn't, because belief is fragile. And stories are stronger. The woman Richard find, she started a garden club. No rules. Just roses. The man who once measured grass, he started painting. Not fences. Feelings. The neighbor who filed complaints, he started writing poetry. About porches. About silence. About love. Willow Creek didn't collapse. It evolved. The HOA still existed. But it no longer ruled. It remembered. It reflected. It rebuilt. One whisper at a time. And I kept writing. Not to expose. To preserve. Because stories don't destroy. They illuminate. They soften. They stitch. And every time I pass Richard's old house, I see the wine glass. Still there. Still full. Still waiting. Not for judgment. For understanding. For grace. For the next whisper. The one that changes everything. Some porches forget. They repaint. They redecorate. They replace. But Richard's porch? It remembered. The wine glass stayed. The chair stayed. The silence stayed. Neighbors passed by. Some paused. Some prayed. Some smiled. No one touched it. It became sacred. Not because of what happened. Because of what it meant. Forgiveness isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with banners. It arrives with stillness. With time. With understanding. The woman Richard find? She never moved away. She planted sunflowers. She hosted dinners. She laughed. Not to forget. To remember differently. One evening, she sat on Richard's porch. Alone. She poured 2 glasses of wine. She whispered something. I didn't hear it. But I felt it. It wasn't anger. It wasn't regret. It was release. She left 1 glass untouched. She walked home. The glass stayed. The porch stayed. The memory stayed. Willow Creek changed. But it didn't erase. It evolved. It softened. It grew. Children played where complaints once echoed. Couples danced where bylaws once ruled. Stories replaced silence. And silence became sacred. I added a new page to my notebook. Some porches forget. Ours remember. Another. Forgiveness is a chair left empty. And a glass left full. Another. Richard broke the rules. But he built a story. I placed the notebook on my own porch. Next to a sunflower. Next to a wine glass. Next to a photo. Not of Richard. Of the neighborhood. Smiling. Together. Unwritten. Unruled. Unbroken. It started as a detail. A red door. Nothing more. But over time, it became a myth. Children whispered about it. Don't knock unless you have a story. Neighbors nodded at it. That's where the rules broke. Visitors asked about it. Is that the house? No one said yes. No one said no. Because myths don't need confirmation. They need belief. The red door became a symbol. Of rebellion. Of romance. Of regret. Of rewriting. Some said Richard painted it after the affair. Others said she did. Some said it was always red. Others said it changed overnight. Truth didn't matter. Meaning did. One neighbor started painting her door red. Then another. Then another. Not to copy. To connect. To remember. To reclaim. Willow Creek became a neighborhood of red doors. Each one different. Each one defiant. Each one sacred. The HOA tried to issue a statement. Uniformity is encouraged. No one listened. Because stories had already taken root. And roots don't obey. They grow. They twist. They bloom. I added a new page to my notebook. Red isn't rebellion. It's remembrance. Another. Doors don't divide. They invite. Another. Richard's affair wasn't the scandal. Silence was. I walked past the original red door. It was slightly ajar. Inside, I saw the wine glass. Still full. Still waiting. Still whispering. Not for judgment. For memory. For myth. For meaning. And I realized. We don't live in neighborhoods. We live in stories. And some stories? They paint the door red. It began quietly. One neighbor. One evening. One glass. Empty. Placed on Richard's porch. No note. No explanation. Just presence. The next week, another appeared. Then another. Different shapes. Different colors. All empty. All silent. It wasn't planned. It wasn't organized. It was felt. A ritual born from memory, from myth, from mourning. Some said it honored Richard. Others said it honored her. Most said it honored the story. The porch became a shrine. Not to scandal. To silence. To softness. To change. Children asked, why are the glasses empty? Parents answered, because the story is full. One evening, I joined them. I placed my own glass. Not for Richard. For the rule he broke. For the silence he shattered. For the love he dared. I added a new page to my notebook. Empty glasses hold the most. Another. Rituals aren't rules. They're reminders. Another. Forgiveness isn't spoken. It's placed. The HOA tried to intervene. Remove the clutter. No one listened. Because clutter is subjective. And memory isn't. The porch stayed. The glasses stayed. The story stayed. And every time a new one appeared, I smiled. Because rituals don't need permission. They need feeling. They need remembering. They need neighbors. And Willow Creek? It remembered. One glass at a time. The memory wall kept growing. Not with bricks. With stories. Photos. Notes. Drawings. Glasses. One neighbor added a poem. Another added a sketch. One child taped a crayon drawing of a red door with wings. I asked, why wings? She said, because it flew away from the rules. I framed it. The HOA called it clutter. We called it history. They tried to remove it. We rebuilt it. They tried to silence it. We sang to it. They tried to forget it. We remembered louder. The wall became a landmark. Visitors came. Not for the bylaws. For the myth. For the meaning. For the memory. I became its keeper. Not by choice. By love. I dusted the frames. I rewrote faded notes. I added new pages to my notebook. Walls don't divide. They remember. Another. HOAs build fences. Stories build bridges. Another. Richard didn't leave a legacy. He left a question. And every time someone asked me what happened, I didn't explain. I pointed to the wall. To the wine glass. To the porch. To the silence. Because some stories aren't told. They're felt. They're lived. They're kept. And I keep them. Not for Richard. Not for her. For us. For Willow Creek. For the myth. For the memory. For the wings on the red door. I used to think homes were built with rules. Blueprints. Permits. Bylaws. But Richard taught me otherwise. His house wasn't perfect. It was flawed. It was whispered about. It was watched. But it was lived in. Fully. Honestly. Bravely. And that's rare. Most homes hide. Behind fences. Behind silence. Behind compliance. But Richard's house? It confessed. It cracked. It cried. It loved. And now, it shelters stories. Not secrets. Not shame. Stories. Of rebellion. Of romance. Of remembering. Neighbors walk by and nod. Not in judgment. In reverence. Children point and say, that's the house. Not with fear. With wonder. With warmth. With wings. I added a new page to my notebook. Some houses follow rules. Others follow hearts. Another. Richard didn't break the HOA. He broke the silence. Another. Stories don't need permission. They need porches. I sat on my own porch. Notebook in hand. Wine glass full. Door slightly ajar. And I realized. I don't live in a house. I live in a story. And every neighbor? Every red door? Every empty glass? Is a chapter. Unwritten. Unruled. Unapologetic. And Willow Creek? It's not a neighborhood. It's a novel. Still being written. Willow Creek used to be quiet. Not peaceful. Controlled. Measured. Muted. But now? It listens. Not to rules. To rhythm. To memory. To myth. The red doors hum. The porches breathe. The wine glasses shimmer. Not with scandal. With story. With softness. With strength. Neighbors speak differently now. Not in complaints. In confessions. Not in bylaws. In belonging. One woman said, I used to fear the HOA. Now I fear forgetting. Another said, I used to measure my lawn. Now I measure my joy. Children play louder. Couples linger longer. Silence isn't enforced. It's honored. I added a new page to my notebook. Listening isn't passive. It's sacred. Another. Rules silence. Stories sing. Another. Richard didn't change the neighborhood. He revealed it. I walk the streets now like a curator. Of memory. Of myth. Of movement. Every red door is a verse. Every porch is a stanza. Every wine glass is a refrain. And Willow Creek? It's a poem. Written in rebellion. Edited in forgiveness. Published in silence. And I'm not the narrator anymore. I'm the echo. I'm the rhythm. I'm the reason we listen. I used to wonder what I'd leave behind. A house? A notebook? A rule? But now I know. It's a story. Not mine alone. Ours. Willow Creek's. Richard's. Hers. Theirs. Yours. It won't be archived. It'll be whispered. It won't be cited. It'll be felt. It won't be perfect. It'll be true. One day, someone will walk past my porch. They'll see the wine glass. The notebook. The red door. They'll ask, who lived here? And someone will answer. A storyteller. Not a president. Not a rulemaker. Not a rebel. A witness. A keeper. A neighbor. And maybe they'll add their own glass. Their own note. Their own myth. Because stories don't end. They echo. They evolve. They expand. I added my final page to the notebook. Legacy isn't what you build. It's what you leave behind in others. Another. Stories outlive silence. Another. HOAs fade. Myths remain. I closed the notebook. I placed it on the porch. Next to the wine glass. Next to the photo. Next to the silence. And I whispered, tell it again. Not for me. For the next neighbor. For the next myth. For the next red door. Because Willow Creek? It's not a place. It's a story. And I was lucky enough to live inside it. I used to be the narrator. Now, I'm the echo. The myth lives without me. The red doors speak for themselves. The wine glasses shimmer without prompting. The memory wall grows without permission. And that's legacy. Not control. Not authorship. Presence. One morning, I found a new notebook on my porch. Blank. Fresh. Waiting. No note. No name. Just a sunflower pressed between the pages. I smiled. Someone was ready. Not to lead. To listen. To witness. To echo. I didn't open it. I didn't write in it. I placed it beside mine. Side by side. Past and future. Memory and myth. Silence and story. Neighbors passed by. They nodded. They whispered. They smiled. Because they knew. The story wasn't ending. It was evolving. It was expanding. It was echoing. I added one last page to my notebook. Echoes don't fade. They find new voices. Another. Stories don't retire. They reincarnate. Another. I was never the narrator. I was the porch. And Willow Creek? It doesn't need me anymore. It has red doors. It has rituals. It has rhythm. It has memory. It has myth. And somewhere, someone is writing. Not about rules. About rebellion. About romance. About remembering. And I'll sit quietly. Wine glass full. Notebook closed. Porch open. Listening. Echoing. Becoming. The porch is quiet now. Not empty. Full. Of echoes. Of glasses. Of notebooks. Of myth. I sit here less often. Not because I've forgotten. Because I've remembered enough. The red doors still shine. The memory wall still grows. The wine glasses still shimmer. But the story? It rests. Not in silence. In peace. Neighbors pass by. They wave. They smile. They pause. Not to ask. To feel. To remember. To belong. I don't narrate anymore. I listen. To footsteps. To laughter. To whispers. To wings. Because stories don't need voices. They need space. They need porches. They need time. One child asked me, will you write another story? I said, I already did. She pointed to the wall. She said, that's not a story. That's a home. I smiled. She was right. I added one final line to my notebook. This porch is my ending. Another. And your beginning. I closed it. I placed it beside hers. 2 notebooks. 2 glasses. Two myths. And Willow Creek? It doesn't remember the rules. It remembers the red doors, the rituals, the rebellion, the romance, the forgiveness, the story. And me? I was never the president. I was the porch. Where stories rest, where silence sings, where memory lives, forever.